Okay, all right, let's talk about another rule for writing for part harmony. That is rules for writing for a complete choir, the soprano, alto, tenor, bass, and we want to talk about the consecutive fifths. Consecutive fifths, consecutive octave, or consecutive unisms are normally not good and they should be avoided when writing for four parts harmony. And we're going to be talking about what consecutive fifth or what consecutive octave means in this lesson and the best way to go about them. Meanwhile, every other rules should be kept, right? Every other rules should be kept. So we've talked about the best note to double. We'll talk about the spacing between any adjacent part. We'll talk about how to arrange the notes when you are representing all these notes on paper. So let's talk about consecutive. Usually, it's not a big deal for any notes to move in the same direction, right? But when it is a fifth, octave, and unison, it should be avoided altogether. So it means you can have consecutive third, you can have consecutive sixth, you have all these notes, but don't have them too much, right? So consecutive third and consecutive sixth should not be repeated for more than 3 times, right? They are like sweetener. They actually sounds nice. Wow, that's consecutive third. Very good, very good. Or consecutive sixth, right? But it should not be concurrently used for more than 3 times. So let's talk about what all these consecutives are. So in this case, we have soprano this way. Remember, the soprano part is the highest part, followed by alto and followed by tenor. So when you are looking out for consecutives, the permutation includes between soprano and bass. So you look out for what happened between these two parts. So in this case, you have an octave. So it means this should not be an octave again. If it is, then that's a consecutive octave. But this is an octave. Why? This is a fifth. So it's not a fourth, it's correct, right? We can also check for consecutives between soprano and tenor. So in this case, soprano and tenor is just a fourth. So let's see what happened here. So soprano and tenor is a third here. Very much correct. So they don't have consecutive octave or consecutive fifth or consecutive unison. So it's correct. So let's see other ways where we can check for consecutives. So we can also check for consecutives between soprano and alto. So in this case, soprano and alto is just a sixth, right? And here is a fifth. It's correct. So we've not broken any rules in this case, right? So it's correct. So let's see other place where you can check for consecutives. So you can also check for consecutives between alto and bass. In this case, alto and bass is a compound third, right? And here we have an octave. So we've not broken any rule. So let's see another arrangement. So between alto and tenor, you should also check for consecutives there. But in this case, we have just a sixth here in this chord. But let's see what happened in this chord. We also have a sixth here. So a sixth going to a sixth. Consecutive sixth. It's not a fourth at all. So we also check for consecutives between tenor and bass. So in this case, we have a fifth going to a third. So we've not broken any rule, right? So in summary, you should always check for consecutives between soprano and bass, soprano and tenor, soprano and alto, alto and tenor, alto and bass, and between bass and tenor. So you should always check for consecutives between all these parts. So in this case, we've not broken any rule and it's perfect. So we have chord 1 going to, it's correct. So let's go to the next one. Spot out the error in the following. So let's try to see if we can find any error of consecutives, either consecutive unison or consecutive octave or consecutive fifth, right? Let's see what happened between bass and tenor. So this is a fifth. So of course you should try to avoid this fifth being repeated in the next chord, in the consecutive chord. But we have fifth here, so this is wrong. So this should be avoided. Okay, so let's see other places where you can find a consecutive. Sounding the notes. It goes this way. Chord 5 on A major, going to chord 1 on A major. So this is not so good, right? This should be avoided because of the consecutive. It should be avoided, right? Let's see the second one. Let's see where we can find consecutive. Between soprano and alto is a fifth, and you see the same thing being repeated here. So that's consecutive fifth, and this should be avoided. Of course, between tenor and soprano, you see how the consecutive third here, which is okay, but this consecutive fifth should be avoided, right? So to correct the first error, we have this. So this is better, right? So we have chord 5 on A major, going to chord 1 on A major. So this is correct. But this one is wrong. But this is right. This is right. Good. Now let's go to the next one. So to correct this, you have it this way. So in such case, the soprano and alto fifth here, and it's going to sixth here, which is very correct. So let's see other ones. So this is sixth, and of course, consecutive sixth is allowed, right? So let's see how this one sounds. So it sounds this way. Chord 1 on G minor on chord 5. Right, so this is correct because we've removed the consecutive fifth between soprano and alto. So the question is, do you think this progression is right? So you can drop your answer in the comment section, right? So far so good. It is wrong to use consecutive fifths or consecutive octave.